This is the I Read Comic Books podcast, the very best podcast for regular comic book fans. I'm your host, Mike Rapin, and joining me this week, two creatures who have come to life from the sketchbook of our very special guest. This week, I am joined by the one and only Kara Shimborski.
Hey.
And our very special guest for this episode, Matt Burbridge.
Howdy.
Thank you both for joining me today. I'm super excited to talk about comic books with the both of you, if only because if the non-recorded portion of our discussion earlier before we started recording today was any preview as to what's to come, this is going to be one of the most chaotic episodes of IRCB I've ever experienced in my life, which I'm totally prepared for, absolutely. But before I even open the floodgate to let that happen, we have two announcements that I have to shout out. We have some Kickstarters that we're pals with. They reached out to me and said, hey, we loved your Kickstarter. Could you talk about our Kickstarter? So I want to shout out the Scott Snyder presents the CloakRoom numbers 1 through 4. It's a 450-page collection of these anthology books that the I think the Jacket Press, I think is what they're called. They're putting together. It's just Scott Snyder's writing team or writing classes that he's been doing. Been putting out Kickstarters for the last year or two. Our good friend CK that came on the show was part of that. And they're doing a big collection of all of those books. Their Kickstarter's running. I think it's got about a week left as of this episode's release. So make sure you go check that out. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. I also want to shout out Collision Force, which is a book that I was like on the fence about until I saw some of the art after the pitch. It's the pitch for it is, after going underground for years, Lars Bowman and his legendary team Collision Force return to fight terror with terror. It's like Rambo to the max, but the art is stupendous. It just seems like nonstop action and violence in a way that feels fun, which is an interesting way to pitch things. I think I've just been in a mood, and you'll find out why I say that when we get to the books that I've been reading. But anyways, got to shout those books out. Check out Collision Force #1. Check out Scott Snyder Presents the CloakRoom 1 through 4, all on Kickstarter. Links in the show notes. Now we're here to talk about comic books. So I have, I'm going to ask our friend Matt, who's here today. Folks at home may not know who you are. So could you tell them what you do, what you've been up to, just a little bit, and then we'll talk about comics you've been reading.
Hi, I'm Matt. I go by Matty to most of my pals. So when people run into me, they go, Matty, and they always say it like really joyously. But if they just say Matt, it just sounds very dry. So just call me Matty when you find me. And I'm still a digital editor at Comixology. I just passed 10 years in the last week. I heard that whistle.
You're like the last man standing or something.
I know, right?
It's kind of a running joke where it's like when people meet me, they go, "Really?" Tilly Walden went right at me and said, "Wow, awesome!" And somebody called me the last Comixologist, and I was like, "Dude, no."
Right.
And I was like,
can't wait to read that comic.
But like the interview, like in like a few side, but like the thing is, it's like objectively not true.
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was, but I'm also a cartoonist. I own 2 Pomeranians, so I refer to myself as a Pom father. So we might get a guest, if you're lucky, when they start getting curious when I'm talking on the far side of the house. I'll bring them up. It'll likely be a black Pom who wants to help us work. And he won't make a peep. He'll just stare at you and go. I contribute to the occasional anthology when I can find them, and I'm usually working on something weird, for lack of a better word, because it's, you try and show people what you do and they just go, but what is it?
So my spotlight question for you was going to be, since this is an audio medium and not a visual medium, how would you use with words to describe the type of art that you do with your cartooning?
So glad you asked. Because I would have just like spiraled out describing things like way too detailed. The most of the root of my stylings comes from Victorian illustration. So if you're familiar with any old-fashioned Victorian or even Edwardian newspaper illustration, it's all who am I thinking? Thomas Nast, like the political cartoonist from the turn of the last century. More recently, obviously, without with the caveat that like it's not really the content, but so much as the process of our crumb with the compulsive sketch work and the heavy hatching and the heavy detailing. Most of it is almost entirely in black and white, because I really want to get those textures right before I add any color. But I find when I add color, I can use the color and build my textures more vividly through the color, where like watercolors will melt together and spread out and fall in a very chaotic way, and then finding the shape within that is actually my favorite game to do. And for the people who are watching any of this as video, I'm happy to show some art if that's helpful, but I don't want to detract from anyone listening.
No, here's the thing. I think later in the show, maybe as part of the post credits or something, maybe we can get into some of your art, because I mean, I have a couple of pieces at my house of yours. You did a page in the IRCB zine, Totally Not a Cult.
Where did you get them, Mike?
You sent them to me. You mailed them to my house. You made me a very beautiful Dr. Doom and sent it to me. And you made me a beautiful Gambit that you sent to me in your wonderful style. It's fantastic. But before we dig too deep into this, Matt, you're a fantastic cartoonist and illustrator. We appreciate all the work that you've done. I'm a huge fan of your Patreon. We love your page in the zine, the Skin Cape page. I think everyone loves that one who's seen it.
I'm creeped out about it.
It's absolutely horrifying, and I'm so glad that you went that direction.
And I'm going to tell you, for the show,
exactly,
it's just a sheet. I wanted to skeeve somebody out.
And you did. But let's talk about comic books. I have two legally mandated questions that I have to ask for the show, and that is, how have you been? How have comic books been? Matt, let me kick things over to you. How have you been? How have comic books been? What have you been reading?
Comic books have been fantastic, with, everything like shifting wildly, both like in lore of like mainstream books, like with Krakoa ending, which I'm still halfway through because I'm trying to do Venom and King in Black now. That's where I've landed. I'm in the middle of that. So that was like 6 months ago. I've just been trying to catch up on current over the last year. And X-Men is very clearly running through the paces of what seems to be a very extended like fatigue. I think people are not buying it as much, and you're not sure where to go, but they kept the same cadence in Marvel for all these books. But it's like things are moving. Things are shifting right now. Big parts are moving, and I can get into that more now, or I'm not entirely sure. Do you want me to expand on it?
I mean, we're I guess, yeah, let's get into it right now. Where are you with X-Men? Let's hear it.
Cyclops.
I don't know where that is, because I'm not reading X-Men, and I know Mike is having like a mental breakdown about it. So
best Cyclops times are when he's not doing well, and he's not doing well, and Havoc's doing better, but he's also not doing well.
Brothers, half brothers, half brothers.
Are they half brothers? No, I think no, they're full brothers. Yeah, they're like.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like a year apart. Like they're just the Summers babies, which if that's Corsair's business, I totally believe that of Corsair, man. But Corsair's been showing up, and he's been trying to like help out in his Corsair way, and Scott just chewed him out most recently because he's Corsair and that's what he does, and he's Scott's dad who left him as a kid, so they're never going to be okay. But Scott is barely hanging on, and Magneto is barely hanging on, and just got like repowered, and everything's really chaotic. It's all over the place. But what I'm really into is Cyclops barely holding it together, because there's been like 2 instances in the recent run where he's just running to the bathroom just to have a panic attack because he's had to talk down government agents at his like doorstep like 4 times now, and he just played big boy energy at Agent Lungfist, who's back and annoying as ever. Government agent who's been around, and I think he's worked with Wolverine before, but he shows up every so often, and he just like runs the mutant beat, and he's just annoying.
The mutant beat.
Yeah, that's what they call it at S.H.I.E.L.D. They call it at O&E. They call it the mutant beat.
Okay.
And it's mostly just talking to the X-Men basically, and Scott is so tired of it. He's so had it. And at the start of this run, he was alone in Alaska, and Magneto came to find him and said, "What are you doing drinking like Logan on a porch in the middle of Alaska?"
Which series is this?
Straight X-Men. Just flat X-Men.
This is the X-Men line. Okay.
Yeah, which I just call plain X-Men. It's
vanilla X-Men,
the plain one. It's not uncanny. They're kind of not. They can't be canned, but they're not uncanny. But the best line from it was Magneto showing up to be like the Colonel talking Rambo back out from like the middle of the sticks. Like, you got to come back. It's not over, dude. And he's just sipping a beer, and Magneto puts an arm around him, I think. But he gets real close, and he says, "Boy," he literally says, "Boy, you were anointed for leadership by the greatest man I have ever known."
And cheers.
And Xavier is in prison in what was previously his family home.
No.
And they turned it into a prison that houses mutants. And that's how it started, Mike.
You talk about this, and it makes me want to read X-Men again. And I feel like...
You can take mine. Get them out of my house.
Okay.
There's stacks and stacks off in the corner. You can have them all.
Besides this X-Men stuff, I can't keep being tempted by this. So you got to talk about something else. You mentioned to me before we started recording, you're
Mike
also
is
reading
Godfather
Mobile
3
Suit
so hard right now. He's just like, every time I get out, they suck me back in.
Exactly. Danny in the chat is saying, "Don't do it, Mike. It's a trap." I agree. Matt, you said you were reading Mobile Suit Gundam: The Origin. Could you tell us about this book? I have no idea what this is.
And Slutty robots, let's go.
I've touched a little bit into
Kara,
the Gundam
my robots wear heels and skirts, and that's it. They go into battle with shields and their togas, and they look beautiful, and they are like metaphors for people's whole bodies as they explode.
Tell me that's the book that you're reading. Tell me that's Mobile Suit Gundam. Tell me that they wear heels.
If you talk to our dear friend Eric Arroyo, he will tell you that's exactly what Gundam's about. Okay. Amongst other things, and that pacifism is the only true way to a future that everybody wants. But Mobile Suit Gundam, as we all know, is like a very grounded...
I'll be real. I don't think anybody on this show knows anything about Mobile Suit Gundam.
My background is... Wait, Matt, I keep saying Matt instead of Matty because actually what I call you in my head is Burbridge. So
You're not the first. You're not the first.
Anyway,
because I am the Burbridge. There are many Burbridges.
The Matty Burbridge. So my experience with Mobile Suit Gundam Wing is the reruns that Cartoon Network played in the 90s. So I have like childhood memories of watching like Ketra and Troa and all of those gang. And I went back and started rewatching season 1 of that anime as an adult. And I was like, hold on. So 90% of this show went over my head when I tried to watch it when I was 7, but it was just on the children's Cartoon Network because it was a cartoon.
Yes.
Okay. So Mike knows nothing and I know 10%. So tell us the things.
Wing is arguably the most accessible to everyone, and it is a standalone by itself. So you are going to get a whole show and like a film, and it's going to be all for you, and you're going to love it. And it's argued that Wing and Seed were able to stand out. Gundam Seed, some years later, were able to stand out more because a woman wrote it.
Oh,
and
love.
And Wing set the standard for that. Wing was like a breakout hit. It was the reason we got it first before Mobile Suit Gundam was because it was that good. And it was during the like 90s economic boom in Japan, so the studios were getting money again, so it looked prettier than it had in a really long time through the 80s recession where like oh my god, I'm getting into like minutia here really quick. The thing about the 80s recession is it taught the studios to be able to work within a budget to make things really sing. So when they got to the 90s and they had money, they were still using the techniques that they like perfected through having no money, and then just made it that much better. So like they were better at using like pause beats. They were better at using like energy and stretch things out in a way that it didn't lose our attention, and like minimal animation to a crisper degree once the money came in. It was the perfect time for Gundam Wing to happen. It just was. And it's so good, and it never stops. Mobile Suit Gundam from 1979 was it's in the simplest terms and in a very reductive way, it's Star Wars but with robots. So if you're into that and you want to get right into it, that's a good way to go, but it's set in Earth with like space colonies and moon colonies. because they wanted the robots to be grounded in Earth gravity so you could see how heavy and tanky they were. And then in space, they would like fly about. So like when they're in space, it's them at their fullest. So the metaphor of the robot as an extension of self, because the robot essentially becomes an extension of self. You're shooting at the robots who are soldiers, but there are children inside piloting those robots. And the metaphor of it is that the truest victims of war are children and the innocent. That's actually a metaphor that's like prevalent throughout all of Gundam, is that it wants to like push the idea of like war in any sense or measure is just like awful. It just is. But let's sell toys to kids in the meantime while we do it.
Right. Yeah, of course.
And they do, but the lore and the whole robot development lines through the histories of all the shows are like grounded in like war fiction. Like they actually did historical war research and developed the robots throughout the whole chronology. They filled it out really well. Hell, Star Wars can take notes on how to do it.
Yeah.
And they probably learned.
You read
a lot
this
from
book.
It.
You read this book, Mobile Suit Gundam: The Origin. What is it?
Yes.
Cucuruz?
Cucuruz.
What is this book about?
Cucuruz Doan is a deserter from one episode of Mobile Suit Gundam that was outsourced to a third-party studio that did such a piss-poor job that the creator of the show said, do not ever put it on syndication in my home country, and do not syndicate it out of the country. It's that bad. I've seen it.
Wow.
It's most of the jank animation still frames that you will ever see of Mobile Suit Gundam that are like a big funny joke now came from this episode. That's how bad it was. So what they went ahead and did is they made a film reanimating the whole thing and expanding it. And it's Cucuruz Doan's Island. And it's an island where a guy from the bad side of the war in the original lore, everybody's bad in war, that's what we learned in Gundam. But the original bad guys, this guy was a deserter from that side who posted up on an island to protect a village that is just people who are not part of the war. And that's what his whole episode is about, is him protecting this village and this island from both sides of the war, getting these people caught in the crossfire. He straight up deserts, but this manga, a gorgeous manga, done in the style of Mobile Suit Gundam, the Origins manga, which was a retelling of the original show, is so far as I've gotten into it, it's a side story about his platoon that he abandoned. But the art is gorgeous. It's crisp. It's clean. It's fantastic, and it really matches the style. Cool robots, cool wreckage, cool Zaku. Commander Doan's Zaku is badass. He's a hard dude. I love him. He's a great character because in the show he tries to convince Amuro, the protagonist, that like, why are you doing this? Who talked you into this? Why did you decide to do this? And he's a kid from space fighting for Earth when it's space and Earth at war with each other. So it becomes all these conflicting motivations, and Amuro's like 16 and he stole a robot and ended up a war hero. I realized what I actually wanted to show you was right under me the whole time, Mike.
What is it? What do you want to show me?
Oh, I have a collection of recent acquisitions of Walt Kelly's Pogo, which is a classic. Walt Kelly's major influence of Jeff Smith.
Clearly.
And Pogo is one of those early, like, was accessible to kids, accessible to adults, influenced works like Calvin and Hobbes pretty easily, influenced works like Bone. And I talked to Jeff Smith last year about it for like an hour, and I found these books at a used bookstore in Exeter in just a stack behind a glass case, and I was not going to leave Exeter without them. But it was a lot of 16, but they're beautiful, and the brushwork is gorgeous just on that cover illustration. So if anybody's watching, that's Walt Kelly's brushwork is just divine. Such control, and the brush texturing. And he's just like nipping it with like these little furry spots. He's just nipping that. That's just the tip, and he's just flicking it. And it's so much control, man. It's so cute.
Well, what a killer find, dude! To find like just at a random bookstore, like that's an incredible find, dude.
And John at the bookstore was so kind about it. And I said, I think this is like such a crazy thing for me to do without thinking. He said, I'll just put them back in the glass case and somebody else will find them. But if you find something like this that you appreciate this much, you're not going to live forever. And these are not going to live forever, but they're going to outlive you. So you take them, you enjoy them, and then they go right back out into the world and someone else will enjoy them. And that's what you should do with these books, is you should put them back out into the world and enjoy them when you're done with them. And I was like, sold. Here's the card. I don't know.
That is quite the sale.
And he was
geez, oh Pete.
And he was so gentle in his voice. He speaks at this volume the whole time. And I was just, John, take it. Just I don't want to think about it. My wife's gonna kill
Throwing
me.
your credit card down. Yeah.
And
very cool, dude.
But yeah, that's I've actually been wanting to show you that specifically. And Kara, were you in front of me? I would just say take like 4 of them. Just take like 4 of them. You need to just look at them.
Matt, I really appreciate you showing that, because that's really cool find. But we have to move on. I have to talk to Kara first.
I'll see you later.
Kara, how have you been? How have comic books been?
Oh, we're talking to Kara now? No, I'll stick around.
I'm
sorry.
With me.
You're talking to Kara. What this was? So, Kara, how have you been? How have comic books been? What have you been reading?
Oh man, Mike, I just like everyone else, I'm taking it one day at a time in the brave new worlds we call 2025, and I got in a really delightful conversation with someone from one of my book clubs the other day about Morbius, and also with one of my other friends about Morbius. And I just find Morbius to be a very useful conversation topic with people.
I love that. I love that so much.
And I will just re-clarify that I've never read a Morbius comic, and I don't think I intend to, because how could it possibly compare to the film?
To the film or the headcanon you've built for yourself. You shot yourself in the foot, Kara.
I love it.
Can you really separate them when the whole film is done in bisexual lighting? Like, come on. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I did a blast from the past for me. For my book that I read today, I got to be in my bonnet about revisiting the Superman Batman series from DC Comics from like 2003 to like 2007-ish. It was like I had forgotten how much groundwork they were laying for all their like Infinite Crisis through Final Crisis stuff. Like, I forgot that at the end of this volume of Superman and Batman, Lex Luthor drops a little like crisis teaser, and I'm like, wait, you took like 4 years to build up this thing. Okay, right, I remember. I actually had not read this volume, Public Enemies, the first volume in this series, when it came out, because the first one that I read was actually the Supergirl series, or the second volume, which was like the I think it was like the Michael Turner illustrated one, and I wanted to read the Supergirl story, and that's how I got into that. And it was very like almost immediately lore heavy, which getting into comics at the time was like, oh, I'm diving in headfirst on this story. But I like the art, and I really like the colorist that they had on that book. Like, everything was like glowy and metropolis-y and like primary colors, but not in a cheesy way. It was great. Anyway, I actually went back and got the first volume in the series because years later, picture Kara in college at the peak of her webcomic reading era, and she comes across an out of context panel from the series Short Packed, which is about like people working with toys, and this is how I learned the never remove from box acronym and all that stuff. Anyway, there's this one like page of Short Packed that's just like spoofing the Superman Batman series, because they do the whole thing in like the internal monologue boxes back and forth, but they do the whole thing like back and forth, like they're all just like, he's thinking that I'm thinking that, he's thinking that I'm thinking that I'm thinking that, like back and forth, like it's just you're just like, just kiss already, like oh my god.
yes
Anyway,
yes.
so I put the link, I found the original like spoof that I saw of this that inspired me to read this, and I dropped it in the notes for everyone to read. But
yeah,
I just remember seeing that and being like, yeah, of course Batman and Superman would be having this intense relationship. And like, if you go back and read volume 1, Public Enemies, it literally is that. Like, most of the book is them beating up various other superheroes because it's just like a general, for reasons, now we're all fighting each other. So but like the whole time they're having the back and forth, like Superman's internal monologue in yellow and Batman's in blue, and they're all like, oh, he's so positive, like, oh, he's so negative, I would never do this, he would never do this, I would never, just the whole time. And they like are fighting well together and like just like swapping dance partners in the middle of the battle. It's just,
I just need them to hold hands.
I just need them to hold hands, Burbridge.
Just a really tense charge to hold. So in my interruption, I was like, I'm going to ruin this. I'm going to ruin this whole episode. I'm never going to hear Kara go off. And it went right into it. I'm really
just right into
now.
it. So, and like bonuses, we were talking about mecha suits. And there is one in this volume, which I completely forgot about because they show it for like a second. Here's what happens. They, again, for reasons. So there's an asteroid from Krypton coming towards Earth, is like the whole thing. And they have to destroy it. But
Superman can't.
Well, Superman can't. And also, and this is where I start holding my face in my hands, because nothing ever changes and life goes on. Because 20 years ago, DC wrote that Lex Luthor was president and had problems with aliens. So,
oh my lord,
you know,
prescient.
Literally, this entire book is Lex Luthor ragging about the dangers of aliens. It's a time. I don't like that they did this 20 years ago, and here we are, but here we are.
I mean, 20 years ago, where were we as a country in the United States as well, right? Like,
true. Yeah, this is like, I think this first volume is from like 2003, 2004. So this is like Bush era, like Patriot Act, everything. So anyway, all that said, so Superman is on the run, but they also need to stop the asteroid. And there's time travel and stuff, but anyway, they hire.
You just get gloss over that time.
They hire.
We only have so much time, you know.
We'll be here all day. They hire the newest toy man, who's like this 13-year-old kid in Japan whose grandfather created Metallo. Right? They hire this kid to create a mecha to go punch the asteroid, and the kid builds the mecha to be half Batman, half Superman, like cut down the middle. And Bruce sees it, Batman sees it, and his first like internal monologue is like, one of the Robins would have made this too. And I was like, dude, like
was it shaped like the Iron Giant too?
It was like, he was like, this is why I hire children, essentially. It was really
because he's a weeb. Batman's a huge dork.
So then,
amazing.
So then the mecha has to go up into space to punch the asteroid, and it's just a whole thing. Like, my one problem with this book is that it's very juvenile about its humor regarding breasts. There's so many jokes about Power Girl's breasts in this book, and it's like, oh, gang. You could have just stopped at the cool mecha. You didn't have to make it about titties. Like, come on. So
I'm hearing it. I'm just like, how many though?
So just so many references. But
I was gonna say like one in passing where it's like somebody's uncomfortable around her costume, maybe. But like,
no, they were like, oh, we have to like keep the 13-year-old genius boy distracted. Power Girl, you go in, and she's like, why? As they like show the panel. Yeah. It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Written by a dude. What is it? The Twitter meme. She walked boobily down the stairs.
We all have our issues with, and we love Jeff Loeb. We dislike Jeff Loeb. Like the guy's all over the place. So I understand.
You're telling us Teen Wolf, Mike. You hold your tongue.
Well, it's
my point.
Okay, so the first issue in this collected volume. I need you to breathe, Matt. The first issue in this collected volume is like so dark and intense compared to the rest of it, which is just like superheroes punching each other. The first issue is like Superman and Batman are fighting the new Metallo like in a graveyard, and they get shoved into a grave together, and Metallo like turns his arm into like a forklift ascent, or like one of those little scoopy things that my brain is not remembering the word for right now, and like dumping the earth on top of them, so they get buried together in this grave.
I was gonna say it's Wuthering Heights now.
And they're buried together in the grave, and they're just like, and then they escape because Batman slaps a bomb on Superman's back and he like blows the grave open.
Oh, and he hugs him and he covers him.
Yes. So like, Mike has his phase in his hands right now, but this book could have been very different. I wish these IPs weren't so expensive, because then they could give this to an author who was like, what if they did marry? And like do that.
Which one is this? Public Enemies?
This is Public Enemies. Yeah, you should go back and reread it.
Yeah, dude, I'm writing it down. I wrote it down. I'm getting Rambo and Collision Force.
Okay, where's my Absolute Universe style story where it's like, and like all those undercurrents are actually currents. They're no longer under the surface. They are the surface, right? That's what we need. That's the next absolute whatever. They'll call it, like, I don't know, ultimatium, I don't know, something like that. I can't think of it.
Anything. Mike, what did you read?
This sounds great.
What are you up to?
It sounds interesting, but I have
Try to follow that act, Mike.
I can't follow either of you. I don't know what I was thinking about talking about comic books today. Last weekend I was gone because I was in New York City for 3 days walking around playing Pokemon Go. And I walked, according to my phone, I walked 50 miles over those 3 days. I don't know if that's true, because part of that I think is like train travel, but like nonetheless, did a lot of walking, caught a lot of cool Pokemon. Twas the goal. Met up with a bunch of nerds who I only see once a year at this thing. It's just like a comic book convention, but we're outside playing Pokemon. So that was fun. Had a really good time. I played Magic with a friend of mine for like 4 hours straight, which is something that I've never done before with anybody. So that was good. And it was nice to just see people who I haven't seen in person in a very long time, just to hang out. So had a good time there. Let's see. It's been raining a lot here in New Jersey, so I've been stuck inside, and I have had zero urge to read comic books outside of like old 90s comics. I don't know why. I'm not that guy. Something happened. I turned 37 or 36, and suddenly my brain's like, oh, I'm only going to read comics from the 80s and 90s now, because I've been digging on Judge Death. I've been digging on a bunch of 2000 AD older stuff, and I decided to finally crack the book, The Demon, Hell's Hitman, by Garth Ennis and John McCrea. This is recommended to us by Kevin Scott when he came on the show. He talked about it, and he reminded me, oh, no, I love the Etrigan the Demon. Like, Etrigan the Demon is the funniest DC character to me, because he's so evil and he speaks in rhyme, and for some reason, that's just, like, the funniest thing to me. So I was like, let's read this incredible run that Garth Ennis and John McCrea did, that Kevin said was great. And the first issue in this is like an annual, kind of setting you up to the status quo of where Etrigan the Demon is, because Ennis and McCrea's run starts in like the middle of this demon series, and it's raw and violent. We meet this guy called the Hitman, who gets created by like some otherworldly entity, like tries to suck the spinal fluid out of his body, but doesn't manage to kill him. And he gets these extra powers. And so Etrigan is like, kind of like, hey, you're cool because you kill bad guys, and I'm the good demon who kills bad guys too. So like, let's be pals, but also they hate each other. It's really weird. It's very funky. The reason I'm reading this book is because, I mean, Garth Ennis to me is like not my favorite writer. Like, sometimes I really love his stuff. There's plenty of Garth Ennis work that I really, really like. But like, Sometimes it's rough, it's pretty bad, but this book is fantastic because you can tell Ennis is having so much fun writing the rhymes for Etrigan. Like he's finding reasons to put Etrigan into scenes that are completely unnecessary just so that he can make a rhyming pun. It's so fun. John McCrea is blowing away every single page with absolute violence and peak 90s like line work. I think I probably should credit the myriad of inkers that are on this book. I didn't have time to find all of them because DC doesn't have them listed anywhere. They're in the books, but like the inkers change pretty regularly, but it's all just like just on the edge of the 80s style where everything's very, very flat. And there's just like unbelievable amounts of hashing and like line work everywhere. Like lines are just extended for no reason. But the way that McCrea draws Etrigan is stupendous. Every single time you see his face, you're like, that's a demon. And I love it because he seems to always be smiling. And I just love the way that that's put together. The way that they draw Gotham is fantastic because Etrigan is a Gotham character, which I always forget, but that's probably why he keeps showing up in the Batman books that I've been reading for a better Batmobile. So like that all starts to make sense. But the whole volume or the whole story leads up to the titular title of the volume, which is Hell's Hitman, where two angels who live in hell reach out to Etrigan and are like, hey, do you want to just kill every demon that you come across on Earth? Because there's a lot of them. And Etrigan's like, dude, you know what I love more than killing like bad guys? Killing bad demons. And so he's totally on board. But Jason Blood, his alter ego, is not pleased about this because in the story, Jason Blood is like, hey, I just like got a girlfriend and we might get married. And Etrigan's like, hey, guess what, fucko? You're traveling the world. Go break up with this girl. You have no choice. I made this deal and we can't piss off other demons. So Jason Blood, the story goes on, but it's very cool. It's all ridiculous. It's over the top. It's absolutely insane, like 90s bullshit and 80s bullshit. So I'm having a great time, and I can't wait to read the next volume. I'm mostly done with this one. It's like 300 plus pages. It's pretty good.
Oh, did it pop into his backstory at all, or is it just like here's a demon and he fights other demons?
This does not go into his backstory. It's basically like I think Ennis is just picking up the character from where the previous author had done it. So I think you get an origin at the beginning of this run, but Ennis and McCrea start in annual 2 and issue 40. So like we're way deep into the book at that point. But so like
you could just jump in. You don't need to know.
I have discovered that like jumping into books like this with like zero knowledge
my studies.
No, seriously, this is the Judge Death book that I read that I just talked about last time I was on the show.
Oh, Judge Death is.
I had no idea who that character is. Clearly, an established character, but jumping into the essential Judge Death book, I was like, doesn't even matter. You pick it all up on context clues, and what's interesting is the story that's being told. Like you figure out pretty quick that Jason Blood and Etrigan have this cool little hand signal where they get to just turn into each other, or not hand signal. It's a saying. It's like
gone the form of man, arise the demon Etrigan.
Yeah. There's a couple variants on that which are pretty fun that they use. And then there's this thing that McCrea and RNS do where like Jason Blood and Etrigan are communicating, but like Etrigan is living in this void space where it's all thorns, and like he's just like constantly leaning all over the thorns and cutting himself. It's so cool. Anyways, fantastic read. I'm really, really loving it, and I'm super glad that Kevin recommended it to me because I don't know, something like this, it just scratches an itch in my head of just like dumb fun, straight to the point, no nuance, just telling stories. And in my head, I'm like, why don't we get that more nowadays? Because if I picked up that book today, I'd be pissed, right? It's so weird that I let 90s books and 80s books get away with it, but I can't let modern books get away with it. And there's a whole other conversation about that, like that I could get into about some Image books that I think
Can
do
I
that.
Get into that
really
one with you?
In post credits, Matt. In post credits, I swear to God, we got to get through this episode. Well, let's move on. We got to move on. Let's talk about comics that are on the top of our pile, whether they are new or old or just something you're trying to get off your shelves. As I refill the shelves in my office after moving everything, I am starting to slowly but surely churn through the things that I haven't read. I have 2 full shelves now of things that I'm like, I bought this and I never read it. I'm very excited to get to those. But I want to shout out some folks that are hanging out with us on Discord today, what they're reading. Emmett's going to be reading Free Planet number 2. Danny's going to be reading Bring on the Bad Guys, Doom number 1. I got so many thoughts about that. Nick's going to be reading Star Trek Omega number 1, and Hugh is going to be reading the TMNT number 9. Holy smokes. I had a lot of thoughts about that Jason Aaron run, if only because I only read the first 2 issues and I don't know if I want to keep going. But we can't talk about that right now. Instead, Matt, I'm going to kick over to you. What is on the top of your pile? I believe you mentioned to me a beautiful little magazine before we started recording that you were going to read.
I would hold it up, but it's across the house now because I had to move over here to save the recording. But it's Heavy Metal #1 with the recently kickstarted relaunch of Heavy Metal with and I paid the extra $5 for the booby cover, which is true. It's $15 for the regular one. It's $20 for the one with boobies on the cover.
I mean, I guess if people are just going to be horny for comic covers, we should make them pay for it, right?
Supply and demand. Also, I will say the $15 covers, which there are multiple, the $15 covers, way better. Like, way more fun, way more energy on them. There's nothing wrong with the booby cover. It's a booby cover. But it's honestly just like a straight pinup, but the painting is lovely. But there's like action on the $15 covers. There's like one of them, I think it was the classic metal bikini on the back of like a dragon with like a sword and everything. And but it is wall-to-wall comics. The whole thing is like cover to cover comics, which is why I picked it up, because the last few, I don't know, decades, whenever I got a copy of Heavy Metal, thanks Pop, happy Father's Day, exactly what I needed it to be. It is cover to cover sci-fi comics, adult comics, great art. I haven't read a lick of it yet though, because I've been very invested in Cyclops' Spiral. But Heavy Metal #1 is next on my list. And then I also picked this up because I took a few lectures in college from Mark Schultz, and I found this at a store. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, Xenozoic by Mark Schultz. Yeah, there was a cartoon when we were kids called Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, and it was based on this comic. And I've never read it, but the artwork is beautiful brushwork, very old school Alex Toth looking art. Think Terry and the Pirates. Very like the main character is basically Ray Spannon. Like it's beat him up, punch him up, run away from dinosaurs, drive killer 1950s convertibles across like desert landscape stuff, and I'm really looking forward to it. So it's a very 70s and 80s sci-fi era coming up in my near future, and I'm looking forward to it because I need a lot of black and white textures, and those comics have a lot of landscape textures that I want to ape when I start getting into some stuff I'm working on.
I dig it, man. I had never heard of the Xenozoic, and now I'm going to have to read a little bit more about it after the show. But Kara, what about you? What is on the top of your pile this week?
Oh, easy peasy. Volume 2 of Superman Batman, going straight into the Supergirl arc. And it's been a minute since I've reread that one, and I reread this one several times when I was a teenager. So I'm curious to see how my perception of that changes, and how annoyed will I be by Supergirl being drawn in a visible thong for so much of this book. But it's just it was a product of its time, I guess.
It was a different time.
It was only 20 years ago. As Matty just talked about his cover for Heavy Metal, but she's probably not a teenager. Is that my hope?
No.
So
I thought she came to Earth as
I mean like your cover that looks like a woman and not a teenager.
God, no.
But like Supergirl is explicitly a teenager, and so they just keep drawing her in these outfits where I'm like, she's underage, please don't do this. Anyway, but I remember enjoying the story, and I'm curious to continue that run. And then I'm like 90% sure I've talked about this book before as a top of my pile, but now it's been lingering in my cart at Fantagraphics for a while. It's the Mickey Mouse and the Amazing Lost Ocean by Denis Pierre-Philippi and Silvio Camboni. And it's like lush color, steampunk undersea exploration. Like, you're thinking like Mickey Mouse, Kara, that's for children. No, it's for you, because it looks like an all ages French style, beautifully illustrated book that just happens to star Mickey Mouse. And it's been in my cart for literally 3 months now, and I keep being like, no, it's not the time. It's not the time. It's summer. This is a summer read. This is a peak summer read comic book.
The cover alone is maybe one of the most beautiful Disney things I've ever seen in my life.
It's stunning.
God.
Yeah.
Am I buying this? Like, I keep buying all these fucking Disney comics because you
buy the
recommend
fucking
them.
Disney comics,
Listen,
Mike.
Every single time I
put
am
the
not
link in the Discord.
Yeah, it's in there. It's in there. I got it. I got you.
I can't open any new tabs, otherwise I'll botch this thing again.
I got you, Matt. I'll send you a whole list of links after this. But thank you for bringing this to my attention, Kara. This is beautiful.
Totally.
Holy smokes.
Oh yeah.
Well, let me talk about what I'm going to be reading next. I'm going to finally do it. I'm finally sitting down to do it. I'm going to be reading Birds of Prey Volume 1 by Kelly Thompson, Leonardo Romero, and Jordi Belair. I know that so many people on our Discord have told me about this book, and they said that it's good. I keep seeing bits and pieces of it from Kelly Thompson's Substack. I don't know what it is. I just, every time I try to dip my toes into a DC book, I get so scared of it.
No, I mean, yes, but
I know. That's the thing. Like, it's rare that I'm disappointed when a book comes so highly recommended, and it's Kelly Thompson. And quite honestly, the more Kelly Thompson books I can get in my life, the better. Like, is her Absolute Wonder Woman one of the best books I've read in the past 5 years? 100,000%. So is Black Cloak one of my favorite Image books that's being published? 1,000%. So what am I doing not reading her Birds of Prey book that has been celebrated so much by so many people? So I think I'm going to get into it. I'm going to sit down and do it. For those of you that don't know, the summary of this book is: every mission matters, every life saved is a miracle, but this time it's personal. Dinah Lance is one of the world's most elite fighters, but sometimes even the Black Canary needs help. With her young sister held prisoner by the Amazons, a near impossible rescue is in order. To save her sister, she reforms the Birds of Prey with an unrivaled group of badasses: Cassandra Cain, Big Barda, Zealot, and Harley Quinn. The only one goal: extraction without bloodshed. What could possibly go wrong? This sounds cool. I know that everybody loves the way that Thompson writes Big Barda. I literally have read 0 comics involving Cassandra Cain, but I know of the character. I don't know who Zealot is.
She's so good.
That Harley Quinn character is pretty popular, I guess. So I don't know. Maybe she's interesting. Joke.
Wait, did you say Zelda?
Sarcasm. Zealot.
Zealot. Okay.
Zealot.
Okay.
I heard great things. I hear this book is amazing, so I'm ready to sit down and do it. There's 2 volumes out. I think a third is coming very soon. So I'm going to just get on that DC Universe Infinite and just start chugging away. I'm very excited. So that's what I'm going to be reading next. I guess to wrap up here, we do have some questions for our good friend Matt. And I know we've been all over the place.
I've done enough talking.
Now, I am curious.
Just a few more.
Kara's leaving.
Just a few more. Few more words, Matt. So Matt, you've been an artist for as long as I've known you. Like, we worked together over at Comixology. That's where we met. That's where all 3 of us met.
We worked together.
We did work together for just a little bit of time. But I am curious. How did you get started with comics? Because as far as I know, you read everything and anything, and yet I have no idea where your comic book origins start.
Dover, New Jersey. I was born.
The end.
No. Well, yeah, because most people find out where I'm from and automatically assume I attended the Cucuruz school, but I was always there. I didn't, but the earliest memory, you would have to ask my mom, and she sold it the same way every time. That's how I know it's not like a tall tale. Like when everybody, mythologizes like life. She said, you were 2 and we walked through a flea market and you saw a Batman comic and you went, what's that? And that was it. You wanted it. And I was like, do we know which one? She's like, why would I know that? It was yours. And you were 2 and you destroyed it. And I went, but I want to know.
The lost origin story of Matt Burbridge.
Yeah. And, well, actually, to add to it, it's really funny because it just, it wasn't the Batman that I owned first, Spider-Man annual that I owned first. When I was like 3 or 4, and it was the Sal Buscema cover where he's got the mask ripped off the bottom half of his face. That's why I wanted it, because I was like, he's under there. I can see him. It's like visceral. You're like 3, 4, but like you don't know the words to describe. Like, it's Peter, and he's got the mask ripped off. This is like vaguely Clone Saga era, and it was that one, and it was another annual of Spider-Man that I found like in close proximity. But it turned out that the one annual had Peter being creepy, because he is, when he's Spider-Man, he's in the suit, he's being creepy. If you saw a dude crawling on the side of a building, he's a creep.
A literal creeper.
Yeah,
but he's literally creeping. He maybe stays in character too long, and that's something that gets explored in Spider-Man, like on and off, because Spider-Man's still Peter Parker. He's still approachable. He still talks sweet. But there's this sequence of him eating an apple on the kitchen table, and Mary Jane walks in the middle of the night, and he's like full suited, like squatting on the kitchen table eating an apple. And he looks creepy. And I love that image. When I was about 19 or 20, I was being shown art in a class by Tom Lyle, RIP. And he was showing us things he did in the intro of the class. And that was a book he did. He did that issue of Spider-Man. And he was my professor, and I had no idea. And I wasn't familiar with the names from when I was a kid, but I said, I remember that exact panel. And it's like little moments like that where you're reading them, and then you just meet the people. And you just stay in it longer. And you stay with it longer. And you love it. And there's always more to read. I know people who want to read all of it. It's like, no. Enjoy that you can't read all of it.
And
enjoy that there's
and so like
more.
your transition from like your 3-year-old, you've got this Spider-Man comic. Were you always drawing comics? Were you always just drawing as a kid, and then you turned it into like, I want to do this more like in a more quote unquote structured way with comics or something like that? Like how did you go from just like drawing a bunch to I want to do comics?
I was always doing stories. I always did like storybook format as like a little kid, and it really kicked off around second grade. So it was like I just called it Space Adventure. It was about a guy named Harry, and he just like went to different things and like shot shit up a bunch of times. And like I drew, tentacles and spaceships and robots and things. I barely remember it, but I remember the character and his sidearm. It's like, like Flash Gordon, like
Sure.
But around the 5th or 6th grade, I started doing the full Captain Underpants, like print your own comics thing, and I did about 3-4 issues of what was like, I thought Recess didn't go hard enough. If you're familiar with that cartoon.
Let's go. I love it.
So I wanted Recess to go a little bit harder, like, so you have a hierarchy of you have liking and trying to like upend like the status quo of the playground law. And so I made basically like a baseball bat, like sword fighting, like kids like raging across like a playground, but only at recess. So I thought it was like really funny to have them just like have like all these really intense like overtures and like declarations of like war, and then they go back to school. And
right.
Like I actually remember specifically thinking like, and they're not doing this. Like so it wasn't there, but it was there. Like the idea, like I remember my aunt and uncle asking me, and my cousins like, so do they ever just like go home? And I was like, yeah, that's why we're not seeing them at home. It's boring.
We only get to see the intense stuff that actually, yeah.
So like it just, but that was when I was like 12, and then I just kept doing it. And then there's points in life where you take breaks and then you find it again. Because it's a long track, but you go to art school, and when you're 16, you end up getting out when you're 20, and then you got to be an adult. So you take like 4 years of postgrad there to figure out what you're going to do. And then you end up working with the coolest people ever for a handful of years. And, everybody's not here.
Yeah.
They're fine.
Well, that's, I don't know. I always find it interesting. I mean, like, as long as I've known you, you've always been drawing cool shit. I mean, like when we worked together at Comixology, you were drawing stuff for like the various promotions. I have on one of my bookshelves.
I drew so much bad. Like now I look at it, I'm like, I failed you guys so hard.
Like you did stuff. Like you made you did a couple stickers. I got the hackathon one that you did. You sent me in the mail.
Did I do a sticker? When did
you sent me a hackathon? I think this was after I left. This is a pretty recent, but like you drew like a hackathon thing that it's like a man with an axe for a head in front of a computer. It looks really cool. You did a couple.
We're going to talk about that. I'll tell you about that.
We'll do it in the post credits, I think. But yes, but I mean, you've always been drawing, and you've done some stuff that was like really impressive, especially during the pandemic. Like you were drawing like this daily journal that went upwards of like 400 something panels or something like that. That was a huge endeavor.
433.
You were posting every single day with those updates. Like, how do you do something like that? And Kara, I promise I'll let you get a question in. I have so many questions for Matt. But how do you do keep yourself motivated for something like that, like with the amount of detail that you're putting into each of those panels?
Panels were easy in one regard, in that they were small.
Sure.
I have, and Tia knows this about me more about my art than like anyone, because she put words to it. Like, I didn't know the words for it, and Tia, being the academic, knew exactly how to describe what I did, and she said, "You're kinophobic, afraid of empty space." So, and your work is like purely in the vein of like horror vacui. Like, you need to fill that room. You need it. When you look at my stuff, you can tell I'm struggling against leaving negative space. It's always been part of it. I've always made things that were too busy. But now I've found that I found to make things that are busy that you can actually see as I've gotten older. So if I didn't have to leave my studio, I could show you into the camera like how much room I filled. Honestly, right behind me was the 6-foot piece I had hanging in Brooklyn from 2 years ago. And it's just rolled up now. But it's full to the brim. It's spilling over in all directions. And that is actually a reaction piece from how disciplined the little notebook panels were. So that's, to answer your question, I have to balance the discipline versus the vomit, the excess that I have to pour off into larger pieces. So I have larger pieces to balance out the really tight discipline stuff, because comics I find extreme times, like so confining, that the large pages actually get difficult to look at. I talked to Tilly Walden about that like a month or two ago. She did her talk with at Keene. It was like put on by like a book club, and we just went, and my wife knows her from when she did the Buzz Books panels years ago at BookCon, when Tilly's book Spinning first launched. So it was really cool to see Tilly at 20, and then at 28, like to see how a person's like grown is so cool. She's so cool, Tilly Walden. By the way, if you're not reading Tilly Walden, you're missing out. But she just does the same thing. Like, the way she described it was like, no, I sort of just feel it out until I find it. You make it up as you go until you find it. There's no reason you can't. It's your book. Just do it. And I was like, that's what I do, Tilly. And I told her how, in order to get over the fear of the page, because in lack of better words, it's a fear of the larger page, because I get overwhelmed of the empty space. So I'm doing this book in a way that then I can construct it later. So now I have 100 that I call futility, because at the start it was to keep my hand sharp. That was the only thing. I was just trying to keep my hand sharp. And then it turned into this. I don't have many fields of reference for how to describe it where people would get it. So it's just sort of an Eraserhead experience.
Totally.
Where everything about it was based directly on my memory of the previous panel and nothing else. So it's a dream of, like, you start with point A and then you can only continue from point A to point B, and you can't plan ahead. You can't. And the goal was to do that and then just keep the camera moving. And so it made this really exciting puzzle to figure out every day. So coming up with them every day was just crazy fun. And then I just got faster and faster and faster as I was doing it. So as it grew in more detail, and there was no padding. I had like 10 days of padding when I started it, and I used those days up within like 3-4 months. And then I did that 6-foot watercolor 5-6 months into it over 6 weeks. So I burnt out in 24 after it was done. And then I just like put stuff away, and I'm actually finishing stuff I started in 24 now. Hate it because it's old, but I have to finish it. But I am starting a new semi-journal project that I'm really excited is going to launch next month. It's with a independent site called Foofaraw, which is FOOFARAW, and I'll find you the links. But I was approached online when I didn't tweet. I threaded it that I was looking for more comic anthologies, because it's difficult to find comic anthologies online because most of them are dialed into specific groupings of people who are underrepresented, which I'm happy to see. I want to see those out there more, but I in fact just can't find them. They're the groups in question are communities, and it's my inability to find anything that really fits me and my style is not their crowd. I don't understand where it's like, I can't ever find a job because they're only asking for specific people. And it's like, right, because they need it. Let them have it. But like, I put it out there like I'm having trouble finding stuff. I don't really fit into any of the groups that are asking for, does anyone have anything that they're just like looking to have somebody make something? I'm a bit of a weirdo. That's all you need to know. And this guy emailed me directly. His name's Kevin. He's really cool. And he said he literally invoked the name David Lynch in his pitch. And I said, okay, that's a solid start. Let's keep talking. And we started talking, and he mentioned, so most of the stuff we do is really outsider, like really outsider. Like we just want to like throw stuff on paper and do like The Angriest Dog in the World, which is David Lynch's comic strip where he just like drew this mean little dog in a house who just like had existential dread all the time or stuff like that. And it was very clearly Lynch just that this guy just wanted to have some fun. And he said I could do whatever I want. So what I'm launching next month, I don't know if it's it, but I'll announce it. It's called Obstruction. It opens with a man having writer's block, but that's not where it's sitting. We're going to explore some space the way I did in my previous project, but we're actually going to explore this person's life. And I want to see where it goes. But again, I wish I could tell you more, but I'm making it up as I go. And that's honestly what keeps me invested. And again, to answer your question again, Mike, it's what keeps it fun. And it keeps me moving fast because I want to know as much as you do. I want to experience it fresh as much as my readers do, so I know what they're experiencing. That's the other thing about my work. I want to put myself through a strain so I can experience it with that like room of separation. So when you turn the page in the notebook, I can't read the whole thing when it's done. I can't connect to it. The daily journal I couldn't connect to. You guys were reading it and telling me what it was about. Like, Mike, you were like, is it about grief? I went, Kara just thought it looked really cool. And was like, this is wild. What is happening? And I went, Kara, I'm so sorry. I have no idea. You have to tell me. You have to tell me. And for months after I finished it, I couldn't read it. I've read it now. It's very clearly, distinctly about change and grief, and everything moves. And it moves like my nightmares I used to have as a kid, where everything, the kind of nightmares where everything moves too fast and you can't stop it. Everything feels like it rushes at you. That's what it feels like.
Well, man, I'm very excited to see this new comic that you got coming. If only because I'm a very big fan of yours, in the sense that I know you on a personal level, but I also like just really enjoy your work. So it'll be very excited to see what you do this serialized thing. We'll get a link to that thing. We'll put it in the show notes and stuff. But I don't care. Yeah, when you have it. Kara, any last question? I'll pitch over to you before we wrap up here.
What's up with all the teeth? What's up with all the tentacle teeth in your work, Matt?
All right, so we go get vulnerable, huh? Okay. Well, when I was younger, I had very, very crooked teeth. I had crisscrossing over the top. It is still not great. My jaw is off center. I wore braces for 3.5 years, and I've had gold teeth since I was 10. 2 of them. My uncle thought that'd be funny. He was the dentist. That's a fact. You ask him, he said, it's pretty funny giving a 10-year-old gold teeth and his mom can't stop you.
Oh my Lord.
It's her brother, and that's Uncle David. Happy Father's Day, Uncle David. But and I still got them in there. But I, as a kid, I fixated on it. So I fixated on my teeth, and I got really good at drawing them because I did a couple science fair projects about teeth, because I was very curious about them. I know a whole heck of a lot about gums and how teeth grow and how they shift and what makes them shift. And I could, for the most part, look at somebody's jawline and know, oh, you chew on stuff out of that corner, don't you? And you've been doing that a long time because you lifted that tooth. Like when you see a person who has like a tooth that like comes up out of the top of their gum line, it's probably on it all the time. But I really like teeth. and they're fun to draw, and they make a lot of people uncomfortable. And I live for that.
Yeah.
I live for discomfort. I live for big smiles. I live for big, long, just which I can tell you, I have another book I was working on up until just this project, Obstructions, was starting, where I haven't quite gotten there, but it's the Cavity Creeps.
Oh,
I was working on a dramatic Cavity Creeps.
Dude. Oh man, it's incredible pages on your Patreon. I think I saw some of this.
Oh yeah, the purple line art, which I do purple because I was having trouble doing things in black and white. It seemed very dull, so I made it fluorescent or purple to keep me engaged longer, and it actually helped. It kept me awake longer to work later, which is another thing. Imposter syndrome is a pain to like figure out and make yourself feel engaged. But I learned from Brandon Graham years ago that he invented systems to make it thrilling and exciting. Where if you look at any Brandon Graham art, it's a common thing if you know Brandon Graham stuff, is he puts in the background visual puns. Like he drew a cow covered in moss with a hammer and sickle on the side of it. And he went, moss cows. And he does that through all of his books, and he fills the background with visual puns like that. They need things to make me engaged to keep going. And so like that's the other thing about the journal, the puzzle, the solving, the working through it, the inventing it as I go to keep you turning and page turning and invested. I have to be invested too.
And so you drew teeth.
And
so you draw teeth.
I draw teeth, and I draw weird, and I draw upsetting level of texture. My hand is so cold all the time. But it works.
I love it. Well, I mean, like I said, Matt, big fan. Really love your work. We really love your page in the zine in particular. I got to say, if you haven't seen it, folks, go to ircbpodcast.com. Buy yourself a digital copy of the zine. But I think that's where we're going to wrap up here. Where can people find you on the internet, Matt, if they want to find you?
Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Facebook is specific. It's art by Matthew Burbridge, Bridge. And then on TikTok and Instagram and probably Threads and Blue Sky, I have it listed as Matty B Comics. Some of them are Matty B Comics, one word, 26 at the end.
Well, I'll get links for all that and put those in the show notes, but
thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, this has been a super fun conversation. I wish we could go for another. You know, I think Kara, you have to drop, but Matt, maybe you and I can sit and we can chat for a little while longer. But yeah, I think that's where we're going to wrap up today's episode. And so thank you everyone for listening live. Thank you everybody for hanging out with us through our technical difficulties today. Thank you to Zander for editing. Thank you to Nick for proof listening. Next week's show, I think is supposed to be me and Nick talking about Ice Cream Man. We're going to see Ice Cream Man Volume 10. There's so much. We have to get into it still. But it's going to be fun. But I think that's going to wrap us up for today. So as we say on every episode of I Read Comic Books, until next time, comics are good. So are you.